Galaxy had long ago learned to bend beneath imperial rule. From the outer spiral arms to the dense clusters of the core, species offered metals, fuel, labor, and even their own young as tribute to high command. Resistance was rare, brief, and always crushed. When a single fleet could sterilize a continent before the next sunrise, obedience became a habit, not a debate. The Galactic general who now faced Earth carried with him the weight of this history, and the casual arrogance of someone who had never known failure. His fleet hung in orbit like a string of dark beads, each ship larger than the cities they overshadowed. His message to humanity was simple: pay or perish. The transmission came without ceremony, a clipped voice from the void, a demand for resources measured in thousands of tons, to be delivered within 3 planetary cycles. Payment was not negotiation, only obedience. When the signal ended, the world fell into uneasy silence. Governments met behind closed doors. Markets panicked. Citizens stared at the sky, searching for shapes that blocked the stars. The general watched from above, confident that fear alone would do his work. It usually did. Earth's leaders performed exactly as predicted. They issued calm statements, pledging dialogue and peaceful resolution. They appeared on broadcast screens with tired eyes and measured voices. "We will comply while seeking understanding," they said. To the fleet overhead, these words smelled of surrender. The general prepared his holds for tribute before the first transport had even launched. But not all of humanity spoke through microphones or parliaments. In quiet places, far from official negotiation halls, another voice waited. It was older than the statesmen, colder than the soldiers, and far more dangerous than either. Whispers named it Baba Yaga. To most, she was myth, an old-world tale wrapped in frost and forest darkness, a figure used to frighten children. To a few who understood, she was not a story but a living shadow. She had been many things in many eras. Assassin, spy master, architect of wars that never made the history books. Now she was a mother raising 3 daughters who believed they lived ordinary lives. The alien envoy did not know her name. When a smaller shuttle descended to meet Earth's chosen representatives, when uniformed officials spoke of peaceful tribute delivery, Baba Yaga listened unseen. No cameras caught her presence. No dossier listed her as a threat. Yet, when the general's transmission concluded, another message was waiting, untraceable, cold as ice. "We do not pay tribute. We collect debts." The fleet dismissed it as defiance from some radical element. Standard procedure dictated tightening the leash. Patrol craft swept low through the atmosphere. Observation drones monitored infrastructure. Strategic satellites were blinded and replaced with imperial counterparts. Yet almost immediately, irregularities appeared. A scout frigate failed to report after entering the southern hemisphere. A sensor drone returning from the mid-Atlantic transmitted only static before burning up on re-entry. An entire platoon of drop troops deployed for a reconnaissance exercise never returned. The official explanation was equipment malfunction. The truth was more unsettling. Humanity was already fighting, and the war had not even been declared. Publicly, Earth remained calm. Markets reopened. Governments issued careful reassurances, speaking of cooperation and partnership. Citizens grumbled but obeyed curfews. Everything looked predictable, and that predictability made the general careless. He read no fear in the reports, only data. Data was comfortable. It behaved. Data did not whisper, "They are watching you." The 3 daughters of Baba Yaga overheard scraps of news while walking home from school, while sitting in crowded buses, while watching leaders beg for more time on shaky broadcasts. They did not yet know what their mother was. She offered no explanation, no warning, only instructions. Stay home. Keep the lights off at night. Do not speak to strangers. The girls thought her simply paranoid, unaware that every passing satellite shadow on the wall was marked and measured, every noise outside their door already cataloged. Above, the general reviewed a list of required tribute: rare earth elements, industrial equipment, medical stockpiles. His fleet calculated the tonnage, plotted orbital cargo lanes, and prepared docking schedules. They did not consider the possibility that none of it would ever be delivered. Not because humans refused, but because humans had already decided the Empire would not live to collect it. The first human strike went unnoticed. It was not spectacular, not cinematic, merely precise. A cargo tug servicing the fleet exploded, taking 2 escort craft with it. The official log attributed the loss to reactor instability. No one questioned it. Machines fail, and primitive worlds produce poor parts. But 3 hours later, another patrol ship reported strange interference in its navigation systems. By the time the engineers diagnosed sabotage, the ship was gone. Not destroyed, gone. No wreckage, no signal, only absence. Somewhere in the deep oceans, far below where any orbital scan could reach, its shattered hull lay buried beneath layers of electronic masking. Inside the fleet, tension grew. Officers whispered of a hidden enemy. The general dismissed them. "They are primitives," he said, his voice cold and mechanical. "They lack the technology for meaningful resistance. Fear makes them sloppy. They will deliver the tribute." Yet the fear was not human. It spread through the alien crews instead. A destroyer's captain swore he saw movement on his own ship's exterior hull, though no boarding craft had been detected. An entire weapons base cycled open in mid-orbit without command input, venting half its munitions into space. Crew discipline faltered. Rumors of sabotage traveled faster than any official briefing. Baba Yaga moved quietly, never revealing her hand. She spoke to no cameras, left no trace of her presence. Those who worked for her did not wear uniforms or wave flags. They were farmers who knew how to poison soil, engineers who knew how to blind sensors, hackers who knew how to make an Imperial warship forget which direction it was facing. They were ghosts, coordinated with precision, armed not with overwhelming firepower but with cunning. They never attacked where expected, never struck twice in the same way. Human leaders played their part well. They met with alien envoys, bowed their heads, signed meaningless declarations of intent to comply. They even loaded tribute containers as a show of obedience. What the Empire did not realize was that every container carried more than metal and medicine. Some held devices designed to spread electromagnetic static inside Imperial scanners. Others held precisely tuned explosives that would detonate only when triggered by certain signals. A few were empty, designed merely to confuse inventory counts. To the fleet above, Earth was behaving, but the planet's heart beat with quiet fury. The alien occupation became routine in appearance, but not in truth. The fleet expanded its orbital net, deploying new monitoring platforms and sensor webs. A lattice of power shimmered invisibly above Earth, each point a node of surveillance and control. From orbit, it looked perfect. On the ground, imperfections spread like cracks in ice. Imperial forces believed obedience was intact. Cities stayed calm. Governors signed tribute manifests. Cargo drones carried shipments toward collection zones. But these drones sometimes flew empty or vanished into fog, or returned with their memory cores scrubbed. The official reports stacked neatly, stamped with compliance seals. Behind them, reality bent. The general demanded progress updates every 10th rotation. His officers delivered graphs, charts, neat lines trending toward completion. None of it mattered. The numbers were lies humans allowed the Empire to believe. The Empire trusted order, and order was the illusion humans painted with care. Beneath that illusion, chaos sharpened into a blade. A single phrase traveled through encrypted whispers, dead drops, signals bounced off defunct satellites. The axis blind. It carried no instructions, only confirmation. Those who needed to understand did. The first Imperial ground fortress rose on what had once been farmland, its alloy walls shining like molten silver under winter skies. 10,000 soldiers marched through its gates, bringing exo-armor, pulse cannons, and air skimmers. They believed themselves untouchable. Days later, its gates stood silent. Communication ceased. Aerial recon captured nothing unusual, just dark soil, a burned field, and a perimeter of empty trenches. The fortress had not fallen in battle. It had been erased, stripped to bones, and swallowed by Earth. Imperial analysts scoured data for explanation. They saw only anomalies. Thermal spikes where none should exist, magnetic interference masking wide zones, fragment of code injected into fleet systems by unknown vectors. The general ordered isolation protocols. He spoke of maintaining dominance through precision and control. Yet every countermeasure seemed anticipated. When a firewall rose, human code tunneled beneath it. When signal channels closed, new ones appeared disguised as system diagnostics. The daughters of Baba Yaga no longer doubted. They had watched their mother dismantle machines, burn plastics, strip old circuitry. They had seen strangers arrive in silence, never knocking, never staying long, always leaving with something hidden beneath coats. Their mother said little. When she spoke, her words were final, not open to questions. Stay small. Stay quiet. Do not look at the sky. The daughters obeyed, even as their world hollowed into secrecy. Above, the general calculated pressure. Fear was a tool. It needed sharpening. Tribute deadlines had slipped twice. Patience became liability. He ordered orbital strikes, not annihilation, but punishment. Precision beams seared empty plains, vaporized abandoned towns. Columns of steam and glass rose where rivers had been. To the Empire, these acts were warnings. To humans, they were signatures written in fire across the sky, reminders that submission was death postponed, not avoided. Warnings bred silence, not surrender. Where towns burned, new tunnels opened. Where patrols searched, footprints ended abruptly, as if the ground itself had consumed its own tracks. Imperial soldiers began to fear shadows that moved when wind was still, reflections in water that did not match the watchers. Units filed requests for increased thermal sweeps, motion sensors, drone escorts. Many of those requests vanished from the queue, erased by human hands inside the very systems meant to secure them. The Empire increased force deployment. Heavy armor descended, mechs bristling with weapons designed to crack bunkers and slag tanks. They faced no armored divisions, no gun lines, no armies. They faced silence. Silence that killed. A convoy of skimmer transports drifted low over a valley in formation, as perfect as parade lines. They vanished in a blink. No fire, no debris, just a pulse of light that washed the horizon white. Hours later, fragments of alien alloy rained down hundreds of kilometers away. Analysis revealed the cause. Controlled gravitational distortion from a device that should not exist on a world like this. The report reached the general. He stared at the data longer than he admitted, then ordered an internal audit for leaks. He still did not understand. The leak was not internal. The problem was belief. The belief that a primitive enemy could not conjure weapons beyond its station. Humans did not conjure them. They built them with hands scarred by centuries of war, with minds tempered by necessity, with materials ripped from their own soil. They built them in caves where no scanner could peer, in factories disguised as ruins, in the abandoned veins of old mines. They built not fleets but traps, and they wove those traps into bones of their planet. The Empire answered with escalation. Siege breakers deployed along coastlines, casting tidal waves that drowned entire ports. Cities darkened as orbital platforms bled electromagnetic storms across the grid. Humanity shivered in that darkness, but its silence held. In that silence, seeds rooted deeper. A third message pierced the fleet's encrypted channel, brief as a breath. You should have burned the forest. It carried no traceable origin. Its tone was not threat, but certainty. The general felt the edges of unease. He ordered psychic profilers to screen the message, searching for intent markers. The profilers spoke carefully. The intent is not deterrence. It is inevitability. The daughters learned more than their mother realized. They pieced fragments from overheard whispers, from coded glyphs carved into wooden boxes, from voices that came and went at night. They began to see patterns in the chaos, a shape behind the veil. Their mother was not resisting invasion. She was orchestrating extinction. Above, Imperial fleets began to bleed. Ships failed in silence, their cores detonating not from impact, but from logic bombs crawling through command strings. Crew rosters thinned as soldiers vanished into mist. Supply chains unraveled when depots became craters overnight. The general ordered executions for negligence. It changed nothing. The fault was not negligence, but hubris. Tribute no longer mattered. This was no longer extraction. It was war by every measure but name. Yet the Empire hesitated to speak that word aloud. To name it was to acknowledge parity, and parity with primitives was an abomination in doctrine. The general still clung to doctrine, even as fragmented his fleet tumbled through atmosphere like dying stars. Humans did not cheer these victories. There were no banners, no parades, no songs. There was only the slow, relentless grinding of preparation, the coiling of a spring wound tight enough to cut through steel. Each act of sabotage was a drumbeat, steady and cold. Each disappearance was a whisper of the storm coming closer. Imperial attempts at negotiation failed before they began. Signals sent toward Earth received only static. Envoys dispatched under flags of truce returned in fragments sealed within pressure coffins. The Empire labeled it barbarism. Humans called it balance. The Imperial fleet opened fire on a planet that did not run. Saturation beams lanced through cloud and stone, vaporizing forests, plains, mountainsides. The bombardment burned for hours, sweeping across continents in calibrated arcs. When it ended, the general expected silence. He expected surrender. What he received was darkness. His ships were blind. Systems failed in unison. Targeting arrays scattering to static, long-range communications dissolving into white noise. Entire power cores collapsed into cascading faults, not from damage, but from deliberate interference. Human devices hidden inside tribute containers had slipped into fleet systems weeks before. They were seeds that bloomed in fire, rewriting commands, severing control, turning precision weapons into inert scrap. On Earth, destruction fell, but not everywhere. Vast tracts of empty land were scoured while hidden sanctuaries beneath cities, mountains, and oceans endured. Humans had prepared for annihilation long before the first threat reached orbit. Their tunnels and vaults were carved deep, shielded by metals that swallowed sensors whole. To the Empire, the surface looked dead. To Baba Yaga, it was cover. When Imperial ground forces descended to secure rubble, they found it alive. Streets once empty became killing grounds. Buildings stood as hollow shells, concealing tunnels that opened and closed like breathing wounds. Mechs marching in formation vanished as streets collapsed beneath them, crushing their frames in pits seeded with thermite and acid. Squads advancing through forests saw the trees ignite in lines, funneling them into choke points where invisible fire ripped them apart. No enemy army confronted them. The planet itself hunted them, guided by human hands. Imperial commanders demanded clear engagements, decisive victories. None came. Every advance met absence. Every occupied zone became a trap. Soldiers spoke of figures moving through smoke and ash, not soldiers of phantoms. Some claimed to hear voices in the static, lullabies in dead languages. Fear became pandemic, traveling faster than orders. Baba Yaga's daughters stepped into shadow without hesitation. Their mother armed them not with banners or speeches, but with tools. They carried maps etched into memory, weapons stripped to essentials, codes that unlocked hidden caches buried decades before they were born. They moved with others who did not wear uniforms, yet fought with precision that mocked military discipline. Each strike they joined was a thread in a wider net, tightening around an enemy too large to see it coming. The general ordered relentless sweeps. He deployed psychic sensors, AI-driven hunter-killers, atmospheric drones layered by the thousands. But data lied, or rather, humans made it lie. Imperial eyes saw enemy movement where there was none, missed it where it was thickest. Ghost signatures danced across radar. Cloned heat profiles tricked targeting into slaughtering empty fields. When real human forces struck, the fleet fired on itself, killing its own to hit shadows. High orbit was no safer. Entire destroyers detonated without warning. Sabotage teams hidden in captured supply shuttles cut through hulls and planted charges inside reactor conduits. Alien corpses tumbled silently into the void, while Earth's gravity pulled flaming wreckage down as a warning. The general replaced crews, increased security sweeps, executed suspected traitors. The pattern only accelerated. Humans were not infiltrating from without. They were awakening from within. The war reached its heart when the Imperial flagship, the unassailable ham of the fleet, went dark mid-command. No weapon fired. No explosion bloomed. Its system simply died, one by one, until it drifted powerless in orbit. By the time engineers restored auxiliary control, The bridge was empty. Every officer lay dead, precise wounds, no alarms tripped. A single line glowed on the main screen. The forest has teeth. The daughters fought on every front, unseen by those they killed. In shattered cities, they guided survivors to safety, then turned alleys into labyrinths of death. In mountains, they lit false beacons to lure Imperial dropships into ambush. On coasts, they marked landing zones that swallowed armor into sand charged with electromagnetic mines. They saw their mother rarely, but when she appeared, the war bent around her like wind around stone. She gave no speeches, only instructions, each one a piece of the map that ended in the enemy's grave. The general abandoned pretense. He ordered planetary scouring, total erasure. Fleet guns fired indiscriminately, slagging earth and sky. Yet even as he destroyed the surface, his forces dwindled. Logistics collapsed under constant sabotage. Ships starved of fuel. Ammunition depots imploded before resupply arrived. Medical bays overflowed with soldiers clawing at unseen terrors. Many killed themselves rather than descend again to a surface that whispered death. Humans showed no mercy because they had none to give. This was not war for territory or honor. This was extermination by necessity. Every Imperial corpse was left as message, every destroyed ship as lesson. In the dead silence between battles, transmission slipped into Imperial channels, soft voices repeating a single phrase in dozens of human tongues. Leave or be buried. The fleet could not leave. Their engines still worked, but their will to command them was gone. The general descended personally, armored in ceremonial plate that no weapon should pierce. He believed fear could be broken by his presence, that the myth of invincibility could be restored if he stood on human soil unchallenged. He marched through ruins guarded by mechs and shock troops, daring an ambush. None came. For a moment he believed victory was near. Then his escort vanished, one by one, into fog too thick to be natural. His armor sensors glitched, flooded with phantom signals. His comm went dead. He was alone. He called for extraction. No answer. He called for his fleet. No signal. He shouted commands into the void. The void whispered back, not in alien tongue, but in human voices speaking words he did not know yet somehow understood. They told him he was prey. They told him his blood would water the roots. When he fell, it was not a gunfire. The ground opened beneath him, a perfect whole line with steel teeth. His armor cracked, his weapons jammed, his power core seized. Figures moved in the darkness below, faceless, many silent. They did not speak as they took him apart. His last sight was not of humans, but of shadows that wore humanity like a mask, relentless and cold. Above, the Imperial fleet received no further orders. Command fractured into panic. Some captains attempted retreat, only to find their navigation corrupted, their jump drives refusing to engage. Others fought among themselves, accusing each other of treachery. Human strikes grew bolder, coordinated, swarming crippled ships and cutting them to pieces. Within weeks, the fleet was gone, not defeated in open battle, but dismantled, its remains raining down on the planet it had tried to enslave. What fragments escaped limped into deep space, carrying no coherent message, only rumors. Earth was not a world to conquer. It was a trap, a predator, a grave,